In the great empire of the Rassenna, there is a strategy game that is played by every free man, from the lowest merchant to the emperor himself. That game is, of course, Thana, the dance of houses. The game is played upon a large circular board, covered in an irregular patchwork of sections called territories, upon which players move tokens and pieces representing trade goods, soldiers, ships, and all the basic elements of imperial society. The rules of the game are so complex, it is said, that only one born and raised amidst the machinations of the Rassenna can truly grasp its precepts. The game is a microcosm of life in the empire, where all the noble houses vie for power and influence over one another, and, ultimately, the imperial throne. This turbulent societal structure itself is also referred to as Thana, and it is an inescapable reality for all Rassenna. We are governed by an emperor whose power is tempered by the Council of 10, a body of advisors composed of a single representative from each of the 10 great city-states of the empire. In turn, each of the 10 city-states is governed by a council of 10 houses, 10 seats of power for which the local noble families compete. Victories, defeats, alliances, and feuds coalesce and dissolve on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. The office of emperor itself is the most fiercely contested, and those who attain the title seldom live to a ripe age. For centuries, assassination has been the most prominent driver of political change in the empire, and it was assassination that put into motion the series of events that caused Ranazu Arcumenna to ascend to the imperial throne. One of Emperor Ranazu's first innovations, to which his status as the longest reigning Rassenna emperor in over 5 centuries can be attributed, was the use of foreign mercenaries to form the core of his personal bodyguard. Outsiders with no ties to anyone in the empire, and cultural views about loyalty and honor that made them virtually impervious to the convoluted socio-political intrigues of Thana. Though His Eminence is not the subject of this text, some background information about him will provide valuable context. The Emperor Ranazu Arcumenna was born the 3rd son of the lord of a minor trading house in the city of Chiusi, on the farthest northern coast of the empire. He had lived a somewhat privileged, if modest, life, charged with managing a bustling harbour. In his time as harbour master, he had come to know a company of barbarians claiming to have sailed from the roof of the world. Their voyage south to the northern shores of the Rassenna Empire having been more than 2 years in length. Their ships were loaded down with exotic goods, furs and ivory, from bizarre animals that no Rassenna had ever seen or even heard of. He was intrigued by these pale giants who called themselves Norskheim, mesmerized by their strange appearance, long hair and beards the colour of fire, and eyes of grey, blue and green. Their ships seemed even stranger, sleek, open-hulled, with a single sail and high prows carved to resemble snarling beasts. A friendly and curious man by nature, Ranazu extended lavish hospitality to them, asking many questions about their faraway homeland and the things they had seen on their long voyage. For their part, the barbarians were gracious guests, and their songs and tales did not disappoint their host. It was shortly after meeting these barbarians that Ranazu found himself deposited by fate in the seat of emperor, and his first official act was to send messengers to fetch his new friends. To these fierce outsiders he showed the great treasury of the imperial city, promising them riches beyond imagining if only they would serve as his bodyguard and protect him from the treacheries of his enemies and friends. Among the noble houses, even the most foolish of Rassenna would know that forces were already at work plotting his downfall. Such is the way of Thana. Though they missed their home, the barbarians agreed, less for the promise of riches than in return for Ranazu's hospitality and offer of friendship, made to them when he was a man of modest means and no great office. It was their belief that to do otherwise would have brought great shame upon them in the eyes of their ancestors, and when they died, they would be barred from the halls of their honored dead. The beliefs of these barbarians were absolutely inexplicable to the lords of the noble houses. They would learn in time, at great cost. Over the next decade, the barbarians thwarted attempt after attempt on the life of the emperor. Some by assassins creeping in the dark, others carried out in the light of day by men commanding armies. After a decade of faithful service, the chieftain of their company, Ranazu's closest adviser and only true friend, Arngir Forkbeard, asked the emperor to permit his son, Ulfgar, to be allowed to return to their homeland. With him would also go a small company to bring their families some of the wealth they had amassed and tell them of their great deeds in the years they had been absent. To this the emperor graciously agreed on one condition, that he could send a chronicler with this small band on their voyage back to the roof of the world to see and hear the things the emperor wished he could see and hear for himself. I am that chronicler, and this is the tale of our journey to the land called Norskheim. Aranthur, son of Ariminium, herald of the Imperial court of Ranazu, Arcumenna,